Hi guys, welcome back to my channel where the gnomes live. This is Sharon Oyella, and today we are making this staff for Radagast. If you've been watching my channel for a while, then you know that I kind of have a series going on. In the last few videos, I've shown you how to make the man himself, how to make his cape, his hat, and even his coat stand. And just like everything else I've made, there's no clay in the staff. There is one wire going up the center, but it's not necessary. Honestly, you can make it without any wires, so if you don't have any on hand, don't worry. Yeah, it's going to be a fun project. I actually made two. This one I made first, and then this one I made second. I added more forks to the back. You can add as many forks as you want to. And with that said, I would suggest looking up his real staff online and just try to get a good look at what it looks like, because this probably is a little bit bigger than it should be, but I did that on purpose just to make it more fantastical and yeah, put my own spin on it. But it's quite similar. I've even included the little rune on the side, and I'll show all of that in the video. Alright, so in the next clip we are going to tackle the supplies list, and as always there are detailed timestamps in the pinned comment below. And not necessary to the project is some wire. You can actually make the staff without wire and it will hold up just fine. I did choose to put wire in this one. This is wire from the dollar store. It's got a paper coating on it, but that's not necessary either. Just any wire that you have on hand. I would say this one's in the medium gauge. It's bendable, but it holds its bend. Paper towel, aluminum foil, masking tape, and white glue. The paper towels I get are the cheap Great Value brand from Walmart. This design on it disappears when it's wet. So you want to make sure that whatever you're using, the design disappears when it's wet. Otherwise it's going to show through in your finished staff. You can also use like fast food restaurant napkins. Those would work as well. The paint colors that I used are black, cinnamon brown, and a beige. The paint brushes that I used are just your basic paintbrush and then a feather brush to do highlights. Also, a thinner paintbrush will come in handy to get into all the little cracks and crevices as well. To do the rune, I did use a little tool to make some indents and some black paint. And for the staff's crystal, I'm actually using a real piece of glass that I've colored myself, and this has a magical story to it, and I've included all of that at the end of the video. You don't have to use glass, you can use a bead. If you can't find a bead, then you can just make a little clump of something and paint it blue. As long as you have something that resembles a crystal, then you're good to go. Alright guys, let's get started. Let's make ourselves a little staff. Alright, so first I'm going to determine how tall I want this. And I can make it taller than I need it to be to start with, and then I can cut it down after. So I'll just do a little bit above his head there. Now I'm going to roll it up in the foil, and when I do that I'm going to make sure that the foil is tightly wrapped around the wire so the wire isn't loose inside. I'm just going to stick a piece of tape on the very end. This is the bottom, just so it's not pokey. I'll flip this up over the end, and now I'm going to roll. And now I'm just twisting the foil around the wire to make sure I have good contact in there. Okay, this part looks great, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap that with masking tape, and again I'm going to wrap very tight. Okay, so right here. So if you didn't stick a wire in yours, you can just twist the top and bend it over depending on how high you want it. So this staff here ended up an inch taller than him. He's a 7-inch doll, so this is 8 inches. I'll do the same thing for here. So I'm going to go about 7.5 right there. So right about here, I'm going to fold down my wire. If you didn't add a wire in, you just fold down the foil itself. So I'm going to expose the wire in there. And what I did was, and that wasn't planned, I just used this as the first fork. So I'm going to fold it down, and then I'm going to cut it. It doesn't matter where, because I'm going to add foil to the end anyway. Right about there. And there's the beginning there. So I just bent it down a little bit. And now I'm going to add the twisty part here with foil. I'll just use the stuff that I cut off here. I'll fold it to give it a little bit of strength. Now I'll just put it on the end and twist it up. The great thing about foil is once you start twisting it, it gets pretty strong. Okay, and then you can just do a little design with this part. You can twist it any which way you want to go. And now I'll just wrap this with my tape, and I'm going to wrap super tight. is on there, and I did bend this wire a little bit to the back, and I just used my pliers to do that. Just pushed it back, and then the end of it is just foil, so I was able to just move that around myself, and I got a nice little curvy wave there. And it's sticking off about, oh look at that, 2 inches exactly, but that's with the curve in there. I just got a pile of squares there, and I'm going to use each one to make all these little bits in here. How about we start with this second one here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to roll up another piece really tight. So even though there's no wire in here, it's really strong, and it feels like there is, but it's just because I've wrapped it so tight, twisted it really tight. And now I'm going to use this piece to create this little design in here. Okay, each one of these little things in here is added with a piece like this. I have tape here ready for me, and if you need an extra pair of hands, then you can use hot glue to hold things in place until you get the tape on there. So I'm going to use this on the top here, kind of like on the top off to the side, and then I'll bend this part down. So let's say right about here. Okay, and then this part I'll bring to the front. I don't want it too much on the side because it'll make my staff too thick there. So right about there. And now I'm going to hold it with my masking tape. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to shape the very end into something like this part. Okay, and then to add this part down here, I just added a bit more foil there. So this one, I'm going to leave the bottom open so I have something to grab onto there, and I'll just twist the front of the fork. I'll get tape on the very tip. And I'll only go down so far, and I'm going to open up this end here so I can attach it to this. And every time you add foil, you want to make sure that it's nice and tight in there, that you don't have anything loose, because that will kind of make it harder later when you add your paper towel. Okay, now I'm going to wrap that in the tape. So this is the part where you can use the little crystal or bead that you're going to shove in there. You can use it as a guide, and that's what I did with this one. So I would just place it in there and I kind of shape things around it. So I'll do the first one right here, this part. So this part here is going to hold the side of the crystal, so I just kind of flatten it out, and the bottom can be twisted into a round shape, and the top is more flat. Okay, I will tape that in now. Now I'm just pushing it with my side of my crystal just into a shape. I'm using pressure there. And now I'm going to get the other side right here. I'll add another piece. So this top part here, I'm going to make flat again and kind of make it look like a stubby branch that broke off. So I rolled the bottom is in a round shape, and the top I'm going to make kind of like a square. And that one is going to wrap around the back, because I don't want to put it on the side because the staff will just get too thick. So I'm going to put it on the back and then shape the side up like that. And again, I'll use my crystal in there. Okay, I'm going to tape that into place. Okay, I'm just squeezing the bottom up around my crystal. The top can be a little bit more open. Okay, I want to add another fork. This one at the top, that's going to come up and over that way. So this one I'm going to have sitting kind of like right on the top. I'm going to add a little bit more design than I did here. This part of the twist I'm going to push down and make it look like a little bump on the top, and then the pointy part can come out through the back. And this is the part where you can get really creative, guys, because his the magical part about his staff is just the natural way everything kind of just flows that one direction. And you can add as many forks as you want. Depending on what picture you're looking at online, there's a number of different versions of how many forks he has. You can look at the one on the movie. It's hard to catch it without it moving around. But you can catch a little part and pause it and see. But yeah, I think like that. Now I'll tape that one in. After you've added a number of these, this part down here might feel a bit loose, so just go around with your fingernails if you can and just really push that tape in. And it helps separate these bits too. So later on when you add your paper towel, this will really add to the design because we want to have a little bit of a ditch in here as well. Like his real stuff has that. And then using paint later, I'm going to show you how to really make that stand out there, and it just adds so much more character to the staff. Yeah, but you just want to make sure that this part right here is nice and tight. Just redefine those shapes that you added. Get that tape to really stick down. And then when we are in the paper towel stage, I'll show you how to add little extra bumps that will just give it a bit more interest. So we're not done yet. I mean, we can do what we can with the foil now, and then if we want to add more bumps and lumps later, we can definitely do that in the next stage. I'm also going to show you how to add a piece like this after the paper towel has been dried, because I wanted to show you how to add it after the fact if you've already put the paper towel on and it's dried, in case you change your mind later on. But you can add it now. And the other thing I wanted to show you before we carry on is his original staff in the movie is, I believe it's straight up and down. There's no twist in it. I just added a bit of twist for some extra flair. Just my own touch. So if you wanted to twist yours, you do it now. Just twist the tape. Hold the top or the bottom and just twist. And if you twist too much, just go back the other way. And you'll notice that I also have a slight bend in my staff, and I just did that by bending it now. So it's not straight up and down. Now I'm going to show you how to add the paper towel, and for that I'm going to be putting a little bit of glue in a bowl, and depending on how thick your glue is, if it's really thick it's going to be hard to brush on, and that's how I apply the paper towel. I'm going to brush glue down and on top of the paper towel. So if it's really thick, throw in a tablespoon or so of water and just mix it up. It'll make it easier to brush on. And then whatever you're using for your covering, you want to tear them up into little strips. And like I was showing you earlier, you just want to make sure that your tape is down and you run your fingernail or something else, like the back end of a paintbrush would work as well if you don't have any fingernails, and just get those rolls in there defined. Because I'm working with smaller details, I just have a pile of paper towel that I've ripped into various sizes. And my glue was white before I got started here, but my brush had a little bit of brown on it. So it's nothing special added in there, it's just a dirty brush I was using. Okay, I'm just going to brush the glue on there. And then brush the glue over top the paper towel. And you want to cover up every part of the masking tape. The paper towel will give you a paintable surface, and you want to keep it smooth too. You don't want to have any big wrinkles in there. So when you brush it on, make sure you're brushing it out smooth. And the other trick is not to put paper towel down on any dry masking tape. Make sure you brush the glue on first. And once I have this covered, I'm just going to set it aside to dry, and I'm not going to do the bottom part so I can stand it up in a cup or something and just let it dry that way. Once that was dry, I did the bottom part as you saw, and now everything is dry, and I can go ahead and attach another piece here. So where this is going to sit, I need something that will hold it in. So I just made another little piece that's foil tape and then paper towel. And now it's dry. I'm going to glue this in across so this can come out. Okay, I'm going to use tacky glue for this part and just put a little bit on each end. And tacky glue grabs pretty fast, so I just have to hold it for a few seconds. Then you can set it aside and let it dry on its own. Now we're going to attach the extra twigs that I made, and these are already prepared, so they have the paper towel on them and it's dried. When you're attaching twigs like this, it's helpful to use some hot glue because masking tape doesn't really stick to paper towel that's been glued and dried. It kind of, peels off real easy. So I just used a little bit of hot glue, and then I make sure to put the tape over the foil always, and then the new paper towel is what's going to hold everything in place. So the benefit of making these extra pieces here is just easier to get the paper towel on there because I could do it beforehand as well. So depending on how detailed or how many forks you're going to be making. And the hot glue is like an extra pair of hands that just holds everything for me, and then I can get the tape on there. And what the tape does is prepare the foil to accept the paper towel. So everything kind of needs each other. Now I'll put some glue on there. Put on the paper towel. And when that dries, everything has become like a solid piece. When you're adding extra forks, you've got the back side covered. So the join there in the front, if you can get a piece down in there, get something pokey to help you, and just push that in. Then once that's dry, it's really solid. So you've glued the back and the front. And just push it into that crease where they join. I just added rolled paper towel that's been soaked in glue, and then I rolled it up, put it there. I'm going to do one on this side as well. I'll leave the bottom open a bit so I can blend that part in. Just creating some texture in there. Alright, in the previous clip you saw me adding in little knot holes and things like that, and once they're dry to the touch you can further shape them, and I use a little tool. I just stick it in there, and that only takes 4 or 5 minutes for it to dry enough for you to be able to do that, and I think they just add a lot of interest. And here I just shoved a little hole in there, another big knot I added here, and I shaped it quite a bit after it was dry to the touch. And you saw me adding little knots up here. So now it's ready to be painted. When it's white like that but dry to the touch, it just means that the glue is still drying underneath the paper towel. Once the paper towel is completely dry, it turns to the color of the masking tape because it's just masking tape showing through. But once it's dry to the touch, you can go ahead and paint it. Now I'm going to do a black wash, and I do this for most of the things I make. I just like the dark undertone it gives. It's not necessary. If you don't like the black wash, then skip it. This black wash is 50-50, so half paint, half water, and I coat the entire thing. And mixing it with water just makes it easier for the paint to get into all the little nooks and crannies. I've been reading on my Facebook page lately, some people have left me some messages that they add the black paint to their glue mixture and they skip this step altogether, which is fine. There's no right or wrong way to do it. If you want to skip this step and want to add it to your glue mixture, then that's great. For myself, I like to add all these little tiny details like you saw me adding, and I fear if I add the paint into my glue mixture, I won't be able to see those little details. And I get quite obsessed with those little details. So yeah, for me, I don't mind this step here, just doing the black wash. I don't mind it at all. So I will probably always keep it as its own step. Okay, once the black wash is dry, you can go ahead and add your color. And I'm going to use cinnamon brown when I do this coat. I'm not doing a solid color, although it's going to look like it. I am going to let some of the black show through. Alright, once that brown is dry, I'm going to take some beige, and I'm going to, it's like dry brushing. We're just going to dip our bristles in there and then get the excess off, and then just lightly go over. And then once the beige is done, what I do is I take the black and a small paintbrush, and I just go in and shadow out all the crevices and holes and little dips that I made. And wherever I did some twisted work, I would go with the direction of the twist. If I added too much black anywhere and it looked too dark, then I would just take the beige and this brush and just highlight it again. And you can go back and forth like that as many times as you want. It just adds more character. Okay, two more things. We're going to put a rune on the side. I just have to look it up, make sure I'm doing the right one. And then we're going to keep that bottom from sliding around. So that will be next. Alright, so now we're going to add a rune, and there's the very first one I've done. That's on the first staff I made. And it was a little bit finicky, I won't lie about it. I tried it with paint first with this little dotty tool, and kind of tried to draw it in like this, but when I was done it just kind of like disappeared. It didn't look like anything, so I just wiped it off and tried a couple of different things. Nothing worked, so I took a tool like this and I made indents in shape of the rune, and it actually looks like it's carved in there, right? But it was still a little bit difficult to work this material. Where am I going to add it on this one? Right here. So I'll let you look it up on Google what the rune looks like it actually looks like, and I'll just show you what I've done. So there's the first line. It's kind of like a star shape, so I'll do the star outline like this with my indent tool. And doing these indents like this, I was able to get a pointy tool and get the paint in there. It helped to guide my little pointy tool. It's almost like carving wood, so I guess it's a good way to do it. So just do it a few times until I feel like it's really in there. This is some sort of skewer that I have on hand. You can use anything that has a point on it. And then just dip that tip in the paint, and I'll follow my outline. And then on each side there's a line that goes out like that. So that's the second one that I did, and that's the first one. So they're done on opposite sides. And they're not identical to the actual rune, but they're close enough. So I'm pretty happy with that. Probably if I spent a little bit more time on them, I could get them just so, but I'm happy with that. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add a dot of hot glue to the bottom of this. I'm going to let it cool. Leave it for about 10 seconds, I'd say, or blow on it a few times until it cools down, and then you can just press it in, and that creates a little stopper on the bottom. Then that way when you have it displayed in his hand, it won't slide around. Alright my friends, all that's left is the magical crystal to go in there, and if you're interested in seeing how I colored this little piece of glass, and it's a magical piece of glass, I've included the story as well. You can keep watching the video, and if not, we'll see you in the next one. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. And if you did find it helpful, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. And if you make something you've seen in one of my videos, please post pictures on my Facebook page where the gnomes live, or tag me on Instagram, Oyella_crafts. Both those links are in the pinned comment below. Alright, so in the next few clips I'm going to show you how I got a clear colored piece of glass into this transparent bluish magical color. And just to give you the heads up, I am no expert in coloring glass. In fact, I didn't even know if this was going to work. And I think it has. I did notice a little bit of the color come off in my staff here, and that was after taking in and out a number of times. So what I did again this morning was just put a coat of clear nail polish on it, and it has a sparkle in it, which makes it look even prettier. But with that said, if you know of a product that you can varnish a piece of glass with to keep color in, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But for this project here, I just used what I had on hand, and I wanted to keep the color transparent like I said, so I didn't use acrylic. I used some chalk and a clear varnish. Alright, so I was on my way to bed, and then I remembered I have all this sea glass, and I was thinking, what if I found a piece in here that I could turn into the gemstone for his staff? Some of you might recognize this. This is all glass that I found on my parents' property. They have an old bottle dump dated back to the 1800s, so some of this glass in here is really old. So anyway, I was digging for treasures, and I found many broken bottles, and instead of trashing those broken bottles, I thought, why don't I turn that into sea glass? And I did. If you're interested in seeing that video, I'll pop it up on the screen for you. There's a couple pieces in here that are good contenders. I'm going to work with these ones, see what I can come up with. So now what I'm going to file down the sides. Okay, I got that sanded down. All the sides are smooth. I just found some varnish for Fimo. I don't think I've ever used this. Probably got it in a thrift store. And some chalk. So I'm thinking of coloring this varnish. Beautiful. Look at that color there. So pretty. So that's what I started with, and that's what I got. So the one I made that night was actually too big, so I had to make another one. But this one is going to stay with Radagast. I'm going to be making him a treasure bag, so that's going to go in there. So the one I ended up making and using is about 1 inch across from point to point. So when I was filming the original clips about the glass, I had forgotten that one of these jars here is full of glass that I gathered on my birthday with my kids. We gathered it on a beach, and it wasn't fully cooked yet. It had been tumbled around in the sea for many, many years, but it needed a little bit more tumble, so I did tumble it and cut it into smaller pieces. So both of these jars here are filled with glass that I gathered myself, and it has history to it. If you think about it, this jar here is full of glass that I dug up out of my parents' bottle dump that dates back to the 1800s. Imagine that. That glass has been sitting in the ground for decades and decades and decades until I came along and dug it up and threw it in my rock tumbler. And then the same for my birthday glass. I mean, the history with this glass here just gives me goosebumps. It sounds dramatic, but I just love stuff like that. It just adds a little bit more magic to it. So either if it was in the ground or in the sea, it has been gathering energy from Mother Earth or from the sea until the day that I dug it up or brought it home and turned it into this magical crystal for Radagast. There's a long story, eh? Oh my goodness. I love stories like that, though. They just make my world go round. Anyway, guys, that brings us to the end of this video, but not the end of the story, because I have a lot more coming up for him. I believe the next thing I'll be making is his sleigh, and then there's going to be animals coming. I'm so excited. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and hit that bell notification so you'll be notified when I upload the next video. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and until next time.